Council and start the meeting 2 minutes early because you're all so ready. Can I have a roll call, please?
Elsley.
Here.
Dobb.
Here.
Hare.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Newhouse.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Could we raise and pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no public hearings tonight that I know of, so we'll move to a special treat. We have with us tonight Sean Bill, who's a computer expert for OSF, but he's also a master naturalist, and he's a member of the school board here in town. And you can introduce your assistant, too, if you
My
would.
assistant is my daughter, Sophie.
Hi, Sophie.
She's in the 5th grade this year at Lady Brown.
Good.
So you may want to watch your eyes here as we turn this on.
Okay.
Right for you. My name's Sean Bill, and I reside in unincorporated Morton. I'm a certified master naturalist through the University of Illinois Extension. Master naturalist is kind of a cousin to the master gardener. We focus on native plants and animals in the wild. In addition to the regular master naturalist coursework, I've also been trained as an Illinois first detector. That is to spot invasive species and report that through the right channels to the right labs so that we know what's going on. Go ahead, so there you go. I'm here today to speak about a subject that may impact the village of Morton. We have a beautiful city, and a large part of that is due to our trees. In most Illinois towns and cities, ash trees make up a significant portion of the shade trees. Go ahead and click. But across the state, the ash trees are dying. We are specifically speaking of the genus Fraxinus. Go ahead and click again. These are the color ash trees: green, blue, black, white, and pumpkin. If you hear anything about a mountain ash or something like that, it's not a true ash. It's completely different. The specific threat comes from the emerald ash borer. And there it is. The emerald ash borer is on a penny here to show you the scale. They're really quite small. We abbreviate the name to EAB just because it's, a mouthful. This is not a class on identifying the emerald ash borer, so there won't be a quiz. I could have provided that for you, but I don't think we have that kind of time. Go ahead, Sophie. The EAB lays eggs on the bark of an ash tree. They hatch as little teeny tiny worms. They burrow under the bark. They eat the sapwood just under the bark. The sapwood contains the xylem and the phloem of a tree. That's basically the equivalent of our veins and arteries. As they eat and grow, they move around, leaving trails in the bark. Oh, you clicked too fast, kiddo. That's all right. But you could see they leave little trails through the bark, and cut off the circulation between the roots and the branches. This is called girdling, and it will kill anything that's above the point that's girdled. When winter is over, they go through the process the bugs do and become adults and emerge with the intention to eat and make baby bugs. You can see the D-shaped hole that the adults leave as they exit. And this is one of the key things on identifying that a tree has emerald ash borer. They have these holes in them. Go ahead. Okay. Here we can see how the EAB affects a tree. Bare limbs appear in the treetop. Go ahead and click again. As we click through more and more, the tree is cut off from the roots. Go ahead. The ash tree tries to fight back by sending up new shoots from below the damaged area. So you can see how it's kind of shrubbing there. And in the end, you have a mature dead tree with a shrub of roots growing out from the base. Some other trees do this. A lot of other trees do this. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've got emerald ash borer, but this is another sign that you can see it from a distance that this may be a problem. Here we have two views of the same street in Toledo, 3 years apart. Obviously, they're ash trees, and that's what happened. Go ahead, Sophie. And there's the result. You got a street lined with stumps. All right. All right. EAB spread from Asia to northeastern United States through packing materials, it is believed. In the 1990s, it was primarily in northern Michigan. However, vacationing Chicagoans transported leftover firewood home that carried the EAB, and it flourished. This map from 2010 shows quarantine areas of Illinois where it is illegal to transport firewood or any logs with the bark still on them. This is 2010. That's 2012. In 2 years, it grew incredibly fast. Notice how this map, 2 years later, the EAB will range as much as 5 miles in a single year. Obviously, in 2 years, that's more than 10 miles. This is a human problem. Notice the vectors. You can see how it kind of, I don't have a laser pointer, but they follow I-55, I-57, I-80. And I think the other one's I-88, because it's traveling with people. Tazewell and Peoria counties are currently not quarantined, as you can see, but we're almost surrounded. I expect that to change in the next two years, probably, maybe sooner. Go ahead, Sophie. To be prepared, citizens need to know about the problem. Don't move firewood. Just might buy us some extra time. We also need to understand the impact on the village. Large dead trees create a safety issue besides the visual impact of having a village full of dead trees. Go ahead, Sophie. Some cities and villages already had nuisance ordinances on the books, particularly after Dutch elm outbreak in the 60s. Some of them have created ordinances or updated their old ordinances. Homeowners need to be aware of these ordinances and their responsibility to remove dead trees on private property. Go ahead. When EAB is detected, having those ordinances will come in handy, allowing the city to move quickly to mitigate the spread and begin remediation immediately. When a tree is removed on public property, it needs to be replaced. We need to avoid the same mistake some of those towns made in the 60s when they replaced elm trees with ash trees. We need to choose a variety of species to replace our ash trees in order to reduce the chances of something similar coming along in the future. Why is action needed now? As you can see on this map, the red areas on the west coast and the west in the mountains show the location of thousand cankers disease. TCD, as we call it, is wiping out eastern black walnut trees. Gorgeous trees. It is a big enough problem to dealing it when it's a problem within nature. But when you add the human element, click, and you see that star in Tennessee, in 2010, it magically appeared hundreds and hundreds of miles away from where it was seemingly contained. We're going to lose our ash trees in Illinois. Heroic efforts may save certain specimens with applications of insecticide, but it's impractical for widespread use. Establishing procedure for dealing with EAB now helps us contain other problems such as TCD and sudden oak death in the future. Go ahead, Sophie. There's a lot more information online. There's a link, but I'd suggest you just Google EAB Illinois, since that's a lot easier than remembering that. Thank you very much.
Sean, having warned us about this invasion, what should the village be doing?
There's a couple things we could do. Check our ordinances. Are we covered for this? Do we have something similar that we could enforce? I mean, having some large dead trees within 3 or 4 years, then they're laying on the ground. So as they start dropping limbs on people or cars or roofs, despite the fact that having lots of dead trees is just ugly. So do we have something that we can enforce that's, on the books, or is there something, I know that there are some ordinances, Craig has a copy of them from some other cities that they use. One idea would be to possibly do an inventory of the town using volunteers. Just getting a lot of people together, having a little class on how to identify trees, and splitting up and walking the town some spring day and figure out how many ash trees are we talking about. So, and of course, just letting people know not to move firewood. I think that the quarantine has kind of blunted the spread. You saw how quick it moved between 2010 and 2012. And as far as I know, there have been no new counties added this year. So.
Thank you very much.
A couple of questions. One is, I read somewhere that the spread was mostly associated with congregations of trees. So if you had an individual tree somewhere and not many ash trees around it, that you might be more greater, better protected.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you move into, if there's 8 trees that are next to a gas station, or somebody stopped for the night and the bug got out of the firewood they were transporting, and then like I said, they range 3 to 5 miles a year. So if you have a single specimen and you have cornfields around you, you may get lucky. You may not, but there are insecticides that help.
That was my next question. What should people be? What should people be looking at for an insecticide? What can the individual?
I don't have the names. I'd contact a landscaper or an arborist. But like I said, you're not going to protect. You may protect the 2 trees that are out in front of the library, but you're not going to protect everything that's in Northwood Park.
Okay.
You're not going to protect everything that's along, in certain streets. You may be able to protect 1 tree in your yard, but again, these trees propagate very easily. They're all over the place. I've got one growing in my backyard that I didn't plant. It's growing right next to the lilac bush, and at most it's a year old, maybe 2, and it's 4 foot tall. They're very, very. They propagate very easily. So,
thank you.
Thanks.
If I could add just a couple things. This is very big in the town of Normal, city of Bloomington. I've been working with them, but they have a lot of trees in their right-of-way, so they've taken proactive steps, and they're cutting down hundreds and hundreds every year. Something a little different from Bloomington from here is we don't have as many in the right-of-way, but that doesn't mean it's going to not affect us the same. There are a lot of ash trees on private property. I've been working with Sean and other, public works, directors throughout Central Illinois. So this is coming our way. I appreciate you coming, Sean, to help with the PR of this. But you will hear more and more of this as we go forward. We think it's probably infected here. You just don't see it for several years. But we're working with the Illinois Department of Ag, and you'll probably see at some point a nuisance type ordinance, and try to do a little more PR with that. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to call my office. If I can't answer it, I will put you in touch with somebody that can answer your question if you're trying to, save the tree, whatever. But really, we're going to lose the ashes. It's sad. A lot of these older towns that have 100-year-old canopy trees, it's a sad picture. They're gone. So that will be here. Our biggest concern probably will be with the overhead power lines, ash trees, especially downtown area. But this is just the start of the PR campaign that you guys will start seeing more of that as we go forward. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Sophie.
It's all right. I've suffered 80% blindness, but it's okay. Hello. Would anyone here like to make a public comment tonight? Recognize that this is the only time you get a chance to do it. If there's something you want to speak to, now's the time to do it. No one wants to make a comment.
Is this, if we want to make a comment regarding the gaming, would this be the time?
Yes. Chris?
For those who don't know who I am, my name is Chris Clark. I'm here in several different capacities. I own Chris Clark Cars in Morton. I've had it for 25 years. I am a homeowner in Morton. I'm a member of the American Legion here in Morton and past commander, which obviously they have an interest in the gaming situation. And what a lot of people might not realize is I was the owner of the Country Saloon in East Peoria, which I just sold last fall. I owned it for 7.5 years. So I have experience with the bar ownership business up until recently, including East Peoria, which is right next to us and has obviously legal gambling. Just want to put a little different light on this whole thing to make people think about it. I think the problem is twofold. First of all, if we don't have the gaming here in Morton, people are going to go to other towns. They're going to go to East Peoria, they're going to go to Tremont, they're going to go whatever to game because people enjoy it, people do it. The other thing that's going on that a lot of people haven't thought about is the revenue that these bars are drawing in allows them to offer cheaper prices on their food and beverages. And this is something that a lot of people don't think about. There's a bar down East Peoria, just down the road from my old bar. They had $1 beers all month because they could do it because of the income that they got from their gaming. So, you know, that's a significant thing. There's a twofold thing. They want a game, and the prices can be much cheaper because of this. I have seen this exodus Peoria because I did own this bar down there. I've made friends down there. I know the bar owners. I've seen a lot of people that used to come to Morton down there, and it is an issue. I've heard the argument about temptation, that if it's there, it's going to tempt people to gamble, and that's going to cause family problems, so on and so forth. I've just got a couple things to say about that. 2 miles from Morton, there's machines available. If you got the temptation, you'll drive 2 miles. There are bars in Morton right now who are legally selling lottery tickets and lottery scratch-off tickets. You can buy them, sit there at the bar, scratch them off. You can buy them and see if you won that night. So, you know, that's a gray area. And the further thing as far as temptation is it's everyone's decision as to what they want to do. You can't control that with the law. We've got legal gambling. We've got a huge boat 7 miles away. And these businesses should not be denied legal income due to the fact that some people may have weaknesses. And my final comment, and this is something that a lot of people I don't think have thought about. There's a lot of bars and restaurant bars in this town that in the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years are going to be up for sale. People are going to want to retire. And when that happens, the market for these Morton bars is not going to be good if they don't have the machines. They're going to go to Peoria, or they're going to go to East Peoria, or they're going to go to Tremont, or they're going to go to Pekin and buy a bar. So I just wanted to enlighten a few people on some thoughts I had, and thank you for your time.
Would anybody else like to speak? Purple in the back.
Hi there. My name is George Mullen. I own Mullen's Arch Pub in the Field Shopping Center. About 40% of my business is food. And this year, since the machines went into East Peoria, I'm down $35,000 in sales. I know my customers are going down there because they come and tell me they're going to go down there during drive time home and late in the evening. And they're selling food and they're selling beer as cheap as we can buy it. When somebody sells it for $1 and they pay tax on it, their cost on it's about 86 cents. there's no way we can stay open and compete against those people. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted you to be aware of it. Is there any questions? Thank you for listening to me.
Someone else raise their hand?
Hi, my name is John Hahn. I'm the current commander of the American Legion Post here in Morton. Another perspective we wanted to make sure was well known is with the gaming machines, that helps support our organization. To some point, it helps run our organization. However, in the past year, we have given back over $10,000 to this community out of the funds that we raised either through when we used to have gambling machines, through what we do with our Pumpkin Festival funds. We are not in it to make a profit by any means. We are in it to support the community. We gave 2 separate $2,000 checks to the local high school baseball diamond when they rebuilt that, both for lighting and for the dugouts. We give out 2 to 3 $750 scholarships a year to students for college, and another $200 to $300 a year in citizenship awards as well. The gambling machines in our facility help us fund those things. Everything that we do is back towards the community. So I appeal to you that it's not just throwing gambling machines because we want to make more money. It's because we want to support you. Thank you.
Marie?
Hi, I'm Marie Arundel from Schooners here in Morton, and I agree with what Chris said. We might lose customers. We have lost customers. We've had several couples that used to come in at lunch that are retired, and they've told me they come in, have a few beers, some appetizers, and play the machines because it was entertainment for them, something to do. And just like George said, sales are down, and ours are definitely down because people can now go down to East Peoria, over to Tremont, Pekin, and play the machines that they can no longer play in Morton. So it has definitely hurt our business. Thank you.
Anyone else? Gentleman in the back.
Hello, I'm Ted Witzig Jr. I'm a minister in the Morton Apostolic Christian Church, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in practice for 16 years. I just want to say just a couple things. The one is, in working with literally hundreds and hundreds of people in thousands of counseling hours and in the practices that I've been associated with in Peoria and in Morton, I can just tell you that the positive effects of gambling are monetary and temporary, and the negative effects of gambling are insidious, long-term, and sometimes on generations. I've watched families, I've watched marriages, I've watched businesses be taken down. I want to say another thing to the board. There's no question that there's a monetary aspect, and for business owners, I'm sure it's very difficult. The reality is that ultimately, while this is viewed sometimes as money that's going to come in on the side, it's like bonus money. Every municipality, every state that starts receiving gambling money eventually learns to rely on that money. It goes from extra to reliance. And I will state what I stated last time I was here and this came up. And it is not good stewardship to rely on other people's poor stewardship of their finances. One other thing, video gambling is, and gambling, but video gambling is considered to be one of the most highly addictive forms of gambling. There's no question about that in the psychological literature. If you'd like to see that, I'd be glad to provide that for you. Recently, the problem gambling was bumped up on its level of seriousness by the American Psychiatric Association. I just want to read one thing about that because they decided to move it to a full-fledged addictive disorder. And it said this change reflects the increasing and consistent evidence that some behaviors, such as gambling, activate the brain reward system with effects similar to those of drugs of abuse, and gambling disorder symptoms resemble substance abuse disorders to a certain extent. The reality is that the same neural pathways are stimulated, and then when you add alcohol plus gambling in that, you've added insult to injury. One last thing that I'd like to say to the board is that our town had the distinct honor recently of being named one of the 10 best towns for family in the country. That's pretty striking. You will not find in the write-up by Family Circle magazine that our town would have been improved by additional gambling, or that our town would be more family friendly if this was added. So I want to appeal to the board that that part of what makes Morton is its family friendliness and the fact that it offers a safe and pleasant environment for people. We're a giving town and a generous town, and I think that we can spend our time and energy elsewhere. So I would, again, effects of gambling positively are monetary and temporary. The negative effects are insidious, long-term, and sometimes rain down on generations. Thank you.
If it's something new, it's not a debate, though.
Just, Marie, can you make it quick, though? I mean, because we don't want to get into a debate here.
I guarantee you, because of the machines at the businesses, the restaurants, that has not caused divorces, that has not caused family problems. We knew everybody that played on the machines in our establishment. It's the boat, I'm not going to say the boat doesn't cause it, but the little bit that they play, the entertainment they have at our place is not causing divorces, any problems, and I'll guarantee you that. And I think everybody else here that has a bar can say the same thing. It's those machines are not affecting families whatsoever.
Chris, this is the last rebuttal.
This will be very brief. I have absolutely no argument with Reverend Witzig that gambling can be an addictive, horrible thing, and that it has probably ruined families, and it's probably taken people down. There's absolutely no question about that. But the fact remains that people who are prone to do that only have to drive 3 miles.
Do the trustees have anything they'd like to ask? Or
Your Honor, do you intend to discuss this
Yes.
under your?
Yeah,
I have
I just
nothing
want to
at-
make sure.
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to pull something from the consent agenda? Would any of the trustees like to pull something from the consent agenda? There being none, could we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes minutes of the July 15 meeting, approval of bills? There's no ordinances or resolutions. We have
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Call the roll.
Belsley.
Yes.
Dobb.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Newhouse.
Yeah.
Thanks. At our last regular meeting, the group by straw vote agreed to consider the preparation of an ordinance to allow video gambling in Morton. I think I'd like someone who's pro-gambling to sort of start this off so we start on a positive. Does someone want to speak to gambling in Morton? Tom?
Well, I will from one standpoint. We have an economic development council, we have a chamber of commerce, and these are people that are trying to help our Morton businesses survive. And I think we have some Morton businesses that would fare with this that have lost the revenue from the machines they used to have. They used to get revenue from the machines they had when there were no controls whatsoever on them. Now it's very well controlled by the state. And I think that revenue for these businesses that do give a lot back to the community, I can think of several of them that give to the high school, they give to different organizations, they support benefits. But if they can no longer stay in business because they can't make a profit because they're losing it to these outside agencies, I think we're doing them a disservice by not allowing them to do that. And our service organizations, they're all getting older. I mean, it's a fact. I'm a member of the Legion, but they need that revenue. They give it all back. They're not in it for a profit. And I respect Ted very much. And Ted was one of my best role models in the DARE program when I was teaching it in the schools. But one thing I think of, Ted, is when I think of this, when we talk about the addiction, I think that's a lot of behavior addiction, and that's the consequence. And we know what the definition of consequence is. It's a result of something you choose to do or not to do. And the people have that choice, I believe, and they're making their own consequences. They could just as well get addicted to QVC. And I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that, but there's people who get addicted to ordering stuff on TV too. So we're going to tell our cable company contract that they can't show QVC anymore? No. And I think for just from an economic standpoint, to support our local businesses, we need to consider it.
Would anyone else like to comment? Any trustee who wishes can request that an ordinance be written to allow gambling, an ordinance that we would vote on at the next meeting. Do any of the trustees want to? You have a question, Steve?
My understanding, Your Honor, was that this period tonight was to be dedicated to discussion.
Right.
And I think it would be appropriate for I know a number of us have opinions. This question has arisen before, as you recall. All of us opposed it, partly on the grounds that we were being asked to approve a state law which was not completed and was unclear and would be committing Morton to consequences that we couldn't see. And I was absolutely opposed to it on those grounds. It's something I have wrestled with. I think this is something we should not do in a hurry. I'd like to hear more from people in Morton. Just so everybody's clear on my personal position, I'm not a gambler. I don't encourage other people to do it. I'm not sure that I think, in fact, I am sure, I think it's not a very good fit with Morton culture, and I think it's a very poor means of municipal funding and a poor means of state funding. On the other hand, I don't feel it's my place to dictate to my neighbor what he can or cannot do. It seems clear to me with a couple of exceptions, that the current state ordinances controlling gambling have addressed most or all of the issues that I had before. And given the numbers of institutions in Morton who could implement gambling and the extent to which it's controlled is very likely to be absolutely invisible. Now, I'm not interested in creating any more gambling addicts or addicts of any kind. I'm not so sure that whatever we do will cause or prevent one more addict. So at this point, I remain open-minded about the subject. I'm willing to listen. Again, I would like folks who are watching on television, anybody who wants to communicate with me, to understand that while I have personal issues with gambling more than one time in my 30 years of service, or nearly 30 years of this service to community. I have bitten my tongue and voted in favor of something that I didn't like because it was the right thing to do, and the opposite. So I am not willing to say at this point where I come out, pending other input from the community, and I'd be looking for something broader than this. I don't think it's just a business decision. Oddly enough, or curiously enough, Wall Street Journal this past weekend is an article on casino data identifying gambling addicts. And as Mr. Witzig identified, the American Psychiatric Association has determined gambling is recognized as a behavioral addiction. A lot of people claim behavioral addictions. I'm not sure that I recognize medical addictions. I think some things are simply personal choice, and I have no medical expertise or psychological expertise, so I won't make an absolute statement. But I am not sure that we have a right to make a determination as to what other people can or cannot do on the assumption that some number of them may make bad choices in doing it, whether it has to do with their driving behavior or their drinking behavior or anything else. So if anybody's interested, this is an interesting reference, not directly related to video gambling, but does address it. So I would like to hear more, and I'm going to take my time in making a decision. There is no doubt Trustee Herman has supplied a packet, and I did some research on the internet. There's no doubt that there's a high degree of quality scholarship that suggests that video gambling is more addictive or recruits more people into gambling than other forms. But then when you read further, you discover that has to do to a large extent with the machine and the internet, and they may develop that kind of addiction without it. Don't necessarily have to have a payoff in order for that consequence to occur. So I am looking to understand more about this and hear more about the reasons for doing it or not doing it.
Trustee Kaufman, would you like to weigh in?
I can't support it. I think we have a community that is unique, and I think we're one of the 10 best places to live in the country, and I think we can do without it.
Your
Trustee
Honor,
Herman.
thank you. When this issue came up a few years ago, it kind of fell to me to do the research because of my intergovernmental and legislative affairs assignment on the board, which I still have. So when I watched the video of the previous meeting and listened to Mr. Ingold's comments, I began the research again, and I have some prepared. I'd like some time to further prepare, but just in general, I took some of the reasons that were given for the original opt-out vote into consideration, and I've researched them more. Some had a moral opposition to government-sanctioned gambling. Some mentioned societal issues, economics, which, by the way, I completely disagree with your assessment of the economics of the situation. The enforcement, supervision, and potential for crime issue, the undefined and untested regulations, the threat of sanctions on capital projects, changes to the law that have occurred since, and the loss of local control over those changes. And from what I have discovered so far, the evidence is very strong that the reasons that we opted out originally are even more compelling today than they were at that time. And so I would like to save the majority of my comments for any potential vote and discussion, but at this point I would have to say that I believe we made the right decision in December of 2009, and I believe it even more strongly today than I did then.
Trustee Hare?
In my opinion, I am still open to hearing the information from both sides of it. I think that there can be a pretty strong case pointed from either side of why you should, why you shouldn't. Where I keep coming back to is choice. And folks that have real businesses that have seen effects, businesses being lost, and the idea that trying to dictate and legislate a moral compass, I struggle with quite a bit. From that aspect, I believe that I believe very strongly about families and churches being the ones to do that, not leaving it up to the schools or a government body or any type of state law to be legislating or dictating moral issues to the family. So, from that standpoint, I'm more supportive of leaning towards a yes vote, being in favor of it.
Tom, do you want to add anything to what you said previously?
No, and except that I don't think it's something that we're looking at for revenue. I don't look at it as a revenue object at all. I'm looking at it for our business people and our businesses in this town that we claim to support with the different things we do, and they are losing business. They had legal machines. Well, they had machines in their businesses for years, and Craig can probably back me up on this. Trustee Herman had mentioned crime. Did we ever have any crime associated with the video machines in the business establishments?
No, and I don't see that the passage of this would cause an increase in any substantial crime such as robbery or prostitution or any organized criminal activity.
Actually, there's evidence to the contrary.
Well, how come we didn't have anything those 20 years that those machines were in there?
It's kind of a long story, but it involves the state control and the Illinois Gaming Board. The chairman of the Illinois Gaming Board was quoted as saying it is next to impossible to keep the mob out of some of this video gambling now. And it's a very, very complex. I'm not saying that there's mob in Morton. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the statewide, because it is all about money, and some people stand to profit from it.
But that's what any business is about, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and we're talking about specific business versus other businesses.
Randy?
I can't support this measure. I think it's already been shared several times, but I think just in summary, I think what Family Circle magazine saw in our community is what a lot of people have seen in our community over the history. Our family values, I think, are just indicative of our community and the citizens, the businesses that we have, and that's not to imply that should this video gaming pass, that it would reflect negatively on the businesses that have it. But I think Morton's a special community, and I think coming on the heels of this recent designation of Family Circle, I think it shows that others outside Morton as well acknowledge and realize something special about our community, and I can't support promoting something that I think is anti-family. That's it.
Well, we have two things to decide. One is, would anyone like council to prepare an ordinance for us to vote on, yes or no? And two, would you like to see that at the next board meeting, and do you think we need a little longer time to study this?
Well, Your Honor, a number of citizens have asked that we consider this. Some have delayed decision-making in their businesses. I think they're entitled to a vote, and I think the argument that we had from one of our business owners was, vote yes or no, just tell us, don't leave us hanging. So I think citizens of Morton are entitled to have a vote on this, and particularly those business owners. So I'm in favor of having a document on which we can vote. As I said, I'm not in an enormous hurry. I know that some people have business decisions pending, so I am inclined to think it ought to be not too far in the distant future, but I don't know that it has to be at the next meeting. But I think in fairness, we need to have an ordinance or a resolution up for debate, cover the ground, make the decision, and then vote it up or down. So that would be my recommendation. Get it on the agenda.
It only takes one trustee to ask for that, and so I think you've just been asked.
We'll work on it.
I would direct you to Trustee Dobb. I think he's the...
I have a question, Tom. We can make it even more restrictive than state law through our liquor license ordinance. Is that correct?
Well, you can tie it into the liquor license, but the regulations per se on gaming are only what the state says. In other words, you charge $25 per terminal. You can't charge more than that. The restrictions can't be more restrictive, but they're fairly restrictive anyway as far as when it can be operated, where it's to be located.
Well, that's what I was getting at, like square footage and separation and that type of thing.
Separation is a definite requirement. And if someone that did not, if the owner didn't police it, in addition to any problems there, they could subject themselves to a problem with the liquor license, which the village has wide authority over.
I think what we should do, and I'll defer to the two positives, is let's have this prepared for the next meeting, have a first reading at the next board meeting, and then vote on it at the meeting after that. Does everyone agree with that approach?
Among the restrictions, and again, I haven't made any decision about this, but assuming that we would entertain the notion, restrictions on outdoor advertising signs, it seems to me, would be appropriate. And if we can do that in conjunction with the liquor licensing, then that would be, I would regard that as part of the requirement. The other question is whether or not I'm informed today that the truck stops are excluded from the liquor license portion of it, and that would be a concern.
Truck stops can 24/7, no liquor license required.
Well, but this is only aimed to liquor establishments, as I understand.
No, the state permits it. If we do not opt out and continue to opt out, our truck stop could operate 24/7.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. So you're saying that...
It's not tied to a liquor license in the case of a truck stop. That's just one of the cases that they've changed the rules on.
And the advertising, I think further research is warranted. I think there's a problem being a non-home rule municipality. The village basically has no authority to do anything in many areas beyond what the state says we can do. So we may be limited in that regard. So
there's actually a long list of changes that have been made to the original law that make it less and less able to be controlled, actually.
So I would say to have a well thought out and researched ordinance, a first reading would be more likely the first meeting in September. I don't want to rush through it. So we make sure everybody's fully informed on everything that's
Everyone's
taken.
comfortable with that?
I agree with
I'd
that.
still like to have two readings, though, so that the public can weigh in.
Prerogative, right.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
are you thinking in that ordinance that you won't, I mean, we voted to opt out. That was that we would opt out of the Video Gaming Act. Okay, so what are you thinking that this ordinance, what kind of specifics are you thinking you would put into this ordinance? I mean, could we just...
Well, you'd have to reverse that, and then you'd also have to, if Well, first you'd decide if you reversed it. Assuming you reversed it, then you would adopt an ordinance that would put in place the provisions for how it's allowed and what you're regulating.
But wouldn't that be a two-step process? First, we would have to vote to reverse it,
Right,
and then we'd have to determine.
yes. Correct.
So the ordinance would be a repealing of the previous ordinance? Where we
Yes.
vote? Is that what you're?
Well, yes, you'd have to do that. I would assume logically, if that doesn't pass, obviously the next one's not going to pass.
It would not be in the same ordinance?
So the,
Could be. It's,
you wouldn't have a vote to uphold the ordinance as the opt-out? Or how?
well, no,
I'm
you
just
would,
trying to
that
figure out
doesn't
how.
make sense. That ordinance is in effect until changed.
Okay, so
There's
you would bring
nothing
you would bring a repeal of that ordinance to us?
I would say how you do it is form over substance. You can do it separately, or you can put it in the ordinance allowing gaming, which would include, among other things, a statement that ordinance number 09, whatever it was, is hereby repealed. Just because it was decided in 2009 doesn't mean that it can never be changed, which is the case for virtually every ordinance. Just to say that this one, if this changes something, that it couldn't be changed.
Well, I'd like to see it all in one ordinance myself. I think that would be a lot easier to deal with.
Yes, I mean, it's either going to go up or down one way or the other.
Okay.
First of all, I don't think it was ever adopted in an ordinance.
It may not have been.
A resolution maybe or something. It might have been a
Not even a
resolution.
resolution. I had to look up this stuff for an FOI, and we just talked about it in the meeting and did never have an ordinance or anything like that.
I think we've read it.
My memory's getting worse, but I think there was official action taken.
There may have been action
there was
taken, but
official action.
not by ordinance or resolution.
Okay, that may be. I'm surprised.
I
at
looked that up today also, but I'll let
Well, you know what to
We
do.
can research that and research all these other issues, so everybody is fully informed on everything before voting.
One last item, Your Honor.
Sure.
Relative to this subject. I also was informed today, interestingly enough, that Village of Washington, City of Washington, apparently, they've approved it. They have issued, I understand, 5 licenses. The monthly revenue to the city is about $2,200 as of July, and that seems to me, whatever the argument is for or against, the issue of municipal fundraising ought not be a substantial part of it.
Do they still have their moratorium on more licenses?
I do not know that, but at that, assuming that that's a roughly accurate rate, or let's be generous and say maybe it goes to $3,000, $24,000 a year, $36,000 a year, that has little impact on the Village of Morton budget. So in my mind, the issue ought not be its value as a municipal fundraiser. I think gambling is an inappropriate method of funding government, period. So the decision needs to be based on other, in my view, other considerations.
Then first meeting in September, you'll bring us an ordinance.
Yes, it'll be circulated, well, I mean, before the meeting.
Yeah.
It won't just be sprung on everybody at the meeting, so.
Any more comments on this from the Board of Trustees? Thanks to everybody who participated. The next item is another easy one, the plaza. We had a special board meeting, and we learned a lot of interesting things. I certainly heard some things that I'd never heard before. And tonight we're going to spend a little bit of time getting some feedback from the the Board of Trustees. I kind of envision first deciding why we want to do this, then deciding are there any alternatives to answer the why we want to do this, and then the next meeting would be to review some of the alternatives. And we're already starting to shape up how we would like to do it, and we'll have some discussions and come together and pick one that'll work best for the village. Whenever I've had to deal with any project where somebody came to me and said, I need $5 million for this or $10 million for that, I only have one question I ask, and that's why. Because if you ask why, then the next question's real easy. What are the alternatives? But you have to know why you're doing it before you can develop the alternatives. And once you get those two things done, then it's just a question of us all getting together and deciding what would make the most sense. So hoping that we can get the why well understood. We're going to talk a little bit tonight. The only whys I've heard, and I'm not trying to make a case here, this is just all I've heard, is that the EDC feels it will help attract young adults to the area, and I think the Chamber has said it would help attract shoppers to downtown. Frankly, both of those are really great objectives. We just want to make sure, I would like to make sure that that's the only reason we're doing it, and if that is the only reason we're doing it, is there something else we could do that might work better. So having said that, I'd like the trustees to weigh in and tell me what they think after that special meeting. Let's start with you, Steve. You started the meeting the other day.
Okay. I was going to hold off and not go first this time, but I
thought it was a good idea to start the other end, too.
Well, that's all right. Well, somebody's got to start.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead. You don't have to start next time.
If fools rush in where angels fear to tread, so I will speak.
Drink deep.
I think that the why, Your Honor, is well established. This has had about 3 years' worth of development and research, and the evidence that downtowns only thrive when there is an interface between the population and the downtown is pretty well documented, I think, and we've had a lot of discussion. I think we had a lot of input. Interestingly enough, I think the meeting turned out to be more enlightening and useful than some people might have thought. And I'm hoping that maybe we can come to a view that says, well, we can come up with a plan and put that plan on the agenda and come up with a package that would say, here's what makes good sense to do. And I think we got some good instruction from two of the speakers at the meeting, one of whom admonished us to lead, and one of whom, our mutual friend, Mr. Bush, said, do something, make a decision. And he also happened to touch on the magic figure, which he endorsed, $1 million. So I'd like to see us kind of come to a consensus that we've got a plan, pretty close to completed, subject to maybe some variables that are now introduced in size and location. We've got a potential for a budget, and I think we could put together a package that says this is something that we can do for the village of Morton. There's good support for it, makes sense, and go on from here. So that's kind of my hope in our discussion tonight.
And the main objective would be to bring people downtown?
I think to help create the gathering place downtown that is identified in other research, make sure that we've got people. Downtowns thrive when you have people who come down to not just service organizations, but retail, food service. We have a renaissance in downtown since 5 or 6 years ago, been wrought partially because of the sense that people were doing something with downtown. And I think the plaza, again, ought not be seen as in a vacuum, as many people, I think, have looked at it as part of the larger downtown plan that's been broadly disseminated and discussed in the village. And at this point, I think we're at the point where we need to decide what are we going to do, and here is a potential plan for it.
Okay, now let me go over to this side.
I thought Thursday evening's meeting was a great thing for our community. And I commend the mayor for the initiative to have something like that take place, sort of an old-fashioned, or you might say a town hall meeting format. I thought the turnout and the comments, I think it was a wonderful venue to have the community participate with feedback and their comments on a project that obviously has captured the emotions and the attention of most of the community. I think some of the things that I gathered from it is, and what I was hoping to see, is that there is definitely some middle ground there. I think prior to Thursday night, you heard from some pretty strong, passionate positions at different spectrums of the plan. One being a full development, multifaceted, higher dollar amount type plaza, and to the other end of the spectrum, a very bare bones, grass only, a few benches type plaza. And somewhere in between there, I was hoping that both sides can move closer to coming up with a plan that the majority of the community can agree with and support. And I think that's at least what I heard or came away with on Thursday night. I think one thing that stood out is we do need to determine a budget. Right now, the dollar amount that we've been hearing, the whole community's been hearing, is this $2.5 million price tag, and that's been presented to us, but it's not something that the board came up with. It's something that's been researched and studied and then presented to us. But I think it's going to be important for us as a board to determine what the budget is moving forward, and the sooner the better. I think it's going to help us focus on ultimately what that final plan will be, what it will look like. The other important part of this is the site. There's what's affectionately known as Plaza 1 and Plaza 2 site, and I think we need to zero in on that and determine where the location is going to be, and that will also help us drive ultimately what will take place at that location. So I guess I see those as the two highest priorities right now for us as a board.
What's your view of the why we're building the plaza? Why do you see that we're doing this?
All along, I guess I struggled with trying to see it as a key financial driver to our downtown. I looked at it as more as a wonderful quality of life type feature that I can support, and I look forward to seeing it materialize someday. But I never looked at it as something that if we didn't have a multifaceted plaza, that our downtown would dry up and go away. I mean, I know our downtown has suffered and taken some hits over the years, but we also have some very good businesses, some resilient businesses. I guess I would like to see the focus on, in my own personal opinion, from the Chamber and the EDC, that there be a lot of focus on helping fill up any of those businesses or storefronts that are empty, or redeveloping space to a higher use. I think energy can be well served in those areas rather than what's happened in the past year and a half or so with the plaza focus. I think, unfortunately, that's created some division among the community, and I hate to see that, and I know a lot of you do also. So I guess to answer your question, I see the plaza as being a wonderful quality of life feature for our community. I'm not quite convinced that it's a determining factor of whether our downtown survives or not, but I would like to see us move forward and someday see a plaza there.
Quality of life is a pretty valid reason.
Right. Yeah.
Jeff, how about you?
I think it's all about revitalizing downtown. We started with our businesses have been very acceptable to the awning program. You look what our downtown, we've had some ups and downs, but certainly even in the worst economic climate, hasn't died. Now you look at it, we have really revitalized, and I really think it's a lifestyle. I'm thinking about my kids, my grandkids, me being able to walk down. I think it's a lifestyle that all the citizens can enjoy. I think a bonus is our visitors and any new businesses, but I think the citizens have put the quarter tax into the business district, and I think it's only proper spent that can be spent on multiple things within that. But why not have a plaza that draws all of us down there, meet, greet, something to do? We need things to do in our community. Everybody today is walking, biking, rollerblading. You could do all that to this site. Dog friendly, dogs on a leash. That's everywhere in this country. And I think we need a plaza to join in that. I've talked to business owners that have restaurants, and they like to even be dog-friendly on the outside. We're not only worrying about the smokers, but the people with their little pooches sitting there. And I think it's a lifestyle. If you go anywhere, it's there. Why can't we have that downtown Morton? I think we can have that with a minimal investment. And I think also people worry about the maintenance. Through our subcommittee looking at the costs, we looked at different things from the inside of the planters, make sure they're concrete so there wasn't maintenance. We looked at a lot of those maintenance issues. We zeroed in on that. Craig and Bruce Brown have a handle. We don't want to build something where there's high maintenance. They got it. So I'm not worried about that. But you have to remember, we're collecting about $37,000 a month in this business district. As every hotel goes up, every restaurant, anything goes up, that number is going to go up. The new farm and fleet, those numbers are going to go up. And I've always said from day one, you're just going to take and budget a small amount of that per month in a kitty to maintenance plan for the plaza. You won't spend it all the time, but some year, 10 years down the road, if you have a $30,000 item, the money's there. I think that's just good stewardship because the business district fund is going to be growing. So I think we certainly can afford it, but I really think it's about lifestyle and redeveloping. I can see some of these old buildings downtown, even the old blacksmith shop, but that could be something different someday if it actually used. And just different other buildings that are sitting there. Owners aren't maybe using them to their full thing, but they certainly own them. They can do with them what they want. But as time goes by, we could all list several different businesses. I think they're going to be revitalized in a lot of towns that you go in. So, but I think it's a lifestyle. I think we will get a bump in visitors, and I think we will sustain our restaurants and see more of them, and shops, and our businesses that are from insurance to any of those. They're going to be able to go dine there and do things. And I thought one of the interesting comments was Teresa Blunier's worrying about mothers during the day. I really kept thinking of the plaza and events and evenings and that, but really for the families and the mothers to have a place to go to do things during the day, where older gentlemen sit there and play chess. I think it could be a blessing to all age brackets. So I think it's strictly a lifestyle decision.
How older are these gentlemen?
We're all getting closer.
Tom?
Well, I think we've already seen the value of the land that we have purchased. I think what we have, in my opinion, is plenty, but I think we've seen the value with the different downtown events and the good use that it has gotten. And I think that just by enhancing it and finally getting off the dime and authorizing a plan and see it go, I think it's time, because we could debate this for the next 4 years if we wanted to and not get anything accomplished. One of the things that impressed me was Steve Opperly's presentation the other night. Oh, by the way, I didn't hear anybody talk about Plaza 2 the other night, hardly. I mean, I think it's definitely on the land we have, which is Plaza 1. But Steve Opperly impressed me because I was thinking of the Veterans Memorial. And I'm thinking, boy, I don't know. I think their original idea, Birchwood Park, would be a good idea. It's more serene, it's more respectful, and it's better for a memorial. But then when Steve told me, you know, everybody says we need something for the young children to do, Steve said it's being designed and built to be an educational process for young children, which would make it ideal for downtown, right there with the draw. And Steve kind of opened my eyes to why the difference. I thought, oh, you don't want a memorial where kids are going to be crawling all over it and dripping their Dairy Queens and whatever, but I mean, the way he explained it made sense to me. And Craig Barley's comments about maybe an endowment through the foundation for maintenance. Jeff mentioned maintenance.
Good combination.
It sounds like a good partnership there, really. But I think one of the other things we need to do along with this is we have to impress upon some of the downtown owners. Some of the downtown business owners have redone their buildings, notably Binkley Jewelries and across the street. They really look nice. We got to get some of those other owners downtown to upgrade the looks of their buildings to make it look like something. And we have to go ahead with the parking lot on the property that we own now, because you see downtown between Leaves and Beans, Firehouse Pizza, and the restaurant that's there with their buffet in the old Witzig's building, the street's lined with cars once in a while. People need more places to park. And I understand we have an in-house plan even, Craig, for that parking lot, which sounded great to me from everybody I've talked to about maintenance and snow plowing and stormwater and everything. So that's my comments.
Ms. Herman?
Thank you, Your Honor. I could just say ditto, but I'll expand just a little bit. I agree with everything that's been said. I think our downtown could greatly benefit, and it already has benefited from the green space as it exists now, but from additional green or down there, trees, a gathering place. I think that I envision it to be a multi-generational, appeal to multi-generations, multi-seasonal. I think it could basically be year-round in some form or another, and flexible. So I am excited about that, and because I think that I feel and have felt my entire life that our downtown is the heart of our community. And I just want to see it more beautiful and more used. And then the side benefit of that is, as people, I do think it will bring people down there, and I think that will cause a diversity of restaurants, shops, choices, and then also possibly extended hours. It's so wonderful to drive down there now in the evening and see cars parked downtown, and I'm hoping that we can see longer hours and more diverse businesses. I would like to see, I think that it will definitely appeal to mothers with young children, but I'd also like to see older people playing checkers down there, those tables that have the built-in checkerboards, and everything in between, jazz band, that type of thing. So I'm very excited, ready to move forward. I think our budget should include maintenance costs and, you know, a nod to that, but I'm ready to move forward.
Bring it home, Trustee Hare.
All right. One of the things I found that was interesting, and that just the overall aspect of it, the appeal of this position, is providing a unique perspective, partly because of my age, and to try to provide leadership within the community. And one of the things that, as you serve your community, you get to learn things. And we're sitting in a building that was fought over pretty significantly. Gordon Honegger talked about this building being built in the a long time ago, and how everybody was up in arms about how much money it cost and what it was going to be used for. And I think we can all happily sit here and say that there's a lot of good use put with this facility. And so for me, the why is important. Obviously, the trying to be a revitalization of downtown. Now, that's a step. It's not the reason downtown is going to get revitalized. It's part of it. It's a process. It's the reason why. Randy, you said that get the commitment from the EDC and the chamber. The truth is no one is committed more than the EDC and the chamber to trying to get this done. These people that came up and spoke on Thursday night, those people were leaders that were speaking out for this project. Those people are business owners themselves that give their blood, sweat, and tears and volunteer time, and are the ones that want this. That in itself is a validation to me. The veterans, Tom was the first one to mention the education part of it. For me, it's not just the revitalization of the downtown effort. It's the education process. It's the potential that can be used. We have no idea how this plaza is going to be used. We can speculate all we want. I know one thing is I know how it can't be used, and that's if it never gets built. The budget part of it for me has been very interesting. It is so clear that we have the money. It is so easy to see that the budget and the money is there for this. I was a little bit awestruck Thursday about some of the misconceptions that were out there. And so that's one of the challenges that I put to the board and the people when we do pick a budget. Be ready, because no matter what that number is, if it's $10 or $1 million or whatever we decide in between, it will be too much for some and not enough for others. But the honest truth is, it's not voodoo economics. It's not the Keynesian economics that I talked about. We have the money, and do not let fear dictate to us what we are going to do and what we aren't going to do. I found that to be a little bit interesting of, what could happen with the economy, right? What, if the state isn't able to give us some of the monies that we need to operate, or the federal government, are going to put the onus on us. Well, let's have a real conversation about that. If that ends up being the case, having a revitalized and diverse downtown is the argument to soften that blow of what that is going to happen to us. And if it gets so bad, we better have all built seed vaults and, have victory gardens in the backyard, because, spending a couple $1 million on a downtown plaza isn't going to mean anything at all on our budget of what's going to happen. So for me, we need to move forward. We need to show leadership. It's the right thing to do. We've got the plaza won. We need to get it done.
I appreciate everyone's input. Would you like to say something else, Steve?
Yes, sir. Based on what I've heard my fellow trustees say, if we're all willing, I would be willing to help put together a package that would give us a not-to-exceed budget number, contingent on some level of fundraising, so the village cash register does not open up until a certain level of fundraising is achieved, which is a standard process, with a recommendation for how to finalize the plan, and then to include a reasonable estimate based on best research and best practices, forecast for maintenance, and put that together in a package that we can all look at and vote yes, no, or modify. So if that would be acceptable to everyone, I will take that responsibility and bring it in. Mrs. Herman has been involved with the Downtown Development Committee. Lots of us have had a hand in this. I think we've got some ideas about where this will fit, and we've got some hugely competent people on that committee who are unselfishly committed. There's no political bias or personal bias. So we've got some expertise that we can call on, and I think we can put together something that the trustees can look at and say, this is good, this is bad, or this is good, but how about if we're going to send you back and do X. So if that's agreeable to everyone, I will have that for the next agenda.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I know that those of you, especially those of you that have been involved with the EDC, have been frustrated with maybe the way that I've processed this, but I ran into so many people who just, they don't catch up. It's not, they don't watch everything that the board does. And one day the board says, we're going to spend a few $1 million. And they go, what? And they need time to catch up. And I think what we've done here, what we're doing now, is making sure everybody in town can find out what's going on and kind of catch up.
Understood.
And I think it's a great idea. If you could come up with a proposal with sort of itemized things, so that, some of us might say, well, could we take this out, or could we put that in? I think we're to the point now where we'd like to start coming up with something that we can all agree to. I suspect, and I think Sam hit it perfectly, no matter what we do, somebody's going to think too much and somebody's going to think too little. But, I might want to pare something down and you might want to add something, but I think we're getting close to being able to do something, and I think the community is at least on board with what's going on.
I am reminded, Your Honor, of the formation of the National Park System, which first engendered bitter opposition, and now probably could not find anyone who would be willing to change it. So I think it's part of the normal process, but I think we're ready to make a decision. And
had I been alive, I probably would have been against it.
I won't comment on that, Your Honor.
Teddy Roosevelt carried a big stick.
Anybody else like to make a comment on this? Good discussion. I have another item, the Ulrich Wildlife Preserve. I didn't even know we had an Ulrich Wildlife Preserve. We've handed this out. It's about 73 acres, and people don't have an opportunity to go out there and walk around on it because you haven't been able to get to it. And so we've got a developer, and the developer is wanting permission to go in and clean up the trails and maybe add some new trails. And I told him that Roger and I had talked, both have talked to him, and I told him that I would bring it to the trustees and see if they'd be willing to let these folks clean up this tract for us. I can do it one of two ways. I can have them prepare a proposal, which I will go over and would share with the Park District because they have the expertise in this. I already talked to Gary Watson about it. He said he'd be happy to look at the proposal. And then I can negotiate some arrangement with them, which would include we have to be held harmless in anything they do. They'll have to have at least a couple of $1 million worth of insurance and so forth, which issues I'll pass by council. If I don't know, do we need a vote to do this? Or?
Well, we need at least a consensus to proceed.
Yeah, and then the vote would be to, I guess, do we need a vote actually ever to do this?
Well, you would need I would envision there'll be a written agreement incorporating the items you just spoke about, but if you have direction that everybody's...
If you all approve, I'll bring an agreement to the Board of Trustees for approval.
We had always talked, myself and Craig and Mayor Derflinger, about pouring concrete around the front entrance and getting that established. So when we go in there, we're not mudding the tree. The developer put the road there per the agreement when they subdivided, so we had access. Then we were always going to put a concrete parking lot in there thick enough to handle the trucks getting in and out and gate it. And you're talking about them cutting trails in?
Well, you can see the trails that we believe that already exist there right now. They don't want to do anything beyond the railroad tracks because we don't want people going.
Are those trails from people deer hunting in there or whatever?
I don't think we ever had. It could be deer trails for all I know. I've never even seen them.
There's quite a few established trails out there. Actually, the street department cleaned up a lot of road campsites out there, deer stands, all that. So they've been out there. You can access, with a truck to even get back there on some of them. So there's quite a few established trails already out there.
The former owner, I think, who donated the land had trails in there. I guess he used it for hunting. And Mr. Ulrich, Dr. Ulrich.
Yeah, when he donated, he said that he'd be the only one that could hunt and fish there as long as he was alive.
Yeah. And I think there are some restrictions on it. We've all envisioned the time when something like this would take place. So I think I'd like to see plan for what they're going to do, but I'd like to see it get used. And I was delighted
to see if there are restrictions.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, we'll bring that
when we took over that, when it was donated to us, were there any strings attached to that in regard to what can and cannot be done there?
Well, this is going to be an interesting project because to get to it, you'll have to go through this new subdivision. I'm not sure I'd want to buy a house on that street.
Well, I think it's going to be a big selling point. That's supposed to be some most beautiful virgin timber back there.
Having a house back
but I think the Director of Public Works should be in that meeting with the Park District when you do those, because I think he should come back too for next year's budget on a concrete parking lot there and how expensive that is and what it entails, so we could budget that the next year too. Because I think if the trails get in there and you have some parking there, that's going to enhance that whole subdivision. And the streets are in, so the sooner the houses are there.
We'll have everybody look at it. He has to look at it because there's a road that has to go to it now.
I was there Sunday, and I was gratified to see that there's the area around the entryway is clean. The road comes right up to it. There's a sign marking the entry trail, and then there's a stone marker that talks about the donation to the village. So has potential to be a really good start.
I thought after fall hit and most of the bugs are dead, I might go out and take a walk around down it myself.
Put your hiking boots on.
You might want to take that little buggy we got, with 4 wheels.
I'll have Phil drive me around. So everyone's kind of in accord with this. You want us to go ahead? Okay, we'll take care of that. The last one I have is Resolution 613, a resolution to support Cortlandt Street bike path, and I'll defer to Craig to review the details.
Yeah, this is a potential grant through IDOT's Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program. It's a federally funded, very competitive program that encourages transportation-related enhancement projects. Some of the examples: bike paths, walking trails, streetscape beautification, those type of not your typical road projects. The biggest thing is it's a quick turnaround. So grants will be accepted online through August 20th, 2013. So that's why I haven't discussed it too much before now. But I've gone through a list of some of the things that we've wanted to do with bike trails. With me saying it's competitive, there's some guidelines to look at. We feel, myself and some of my staff and some of the engineers that work with us feel this one goes to the top of the list, and that's along Cortland, most likely on the south side from Veterans to North Morton. At this point, within the right-of-way, we won't be having a need right-of-way outside. So I'm just asking for support from you all tonight for that, and we'd also be going to some of the local representatives asking for their support too, because this is a very competitive program against pretty much everyone throughout the state. So I believe I think it's $50 million is what I saw in January is when that they put money aside for that. So $50 million throughout the state. But I think this is a really good project for us to go for.
I do too. I hope that everyone agrees so we can go and apply for it.
Your Honors, Craig discussed this. I was wondering on the Aldrich Wildlife Preserve, if we shouldn't be looking for park grants and different money to enhance that, whether it be trails or parking in the next couple of years, and see if we can't get hands on that to do what we're talking about doing there.
Kind of like to see what they're willing to spend first. But
True.
you're right,
But
because that could be a beautiful
because
park.
we
That's
can
quite
get
a
money
piece
for
of
bike
land.
trails even as municipality.
Yeah.
So since we have our own park, really, what it is, we should be looking at grants for that. Thought maybe the city administrator could do that.
Yeah. And this specific one, like I said, when I say competitive, and basically they're scoring them, this one goes to the top of the list on Cortland. Obviously, you got the bike trail. There's good terminal points. It was a past federally funded project, Cortland, that does help score higher. So this one in particular should score fairly high within the group. But yeah, if we've got other projects, we're always looking to go for grants.
Need a motion, Your Honor?
I think, you need a motion for this? Do you really? Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Call it.
Dobb.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
And a copy of that will be put in the application to help support it.
Mr. Knoll, do you have anything?
I do. Mrs. Farrell would like to ask approval to transfer $252,000 from the general fund, $202,000 from the water and wastewater depreciation fund, and $149,000 from the stormwater depreciation fund, all to the capital projects fund.
So moved, Your Honor.
Jeff. Did somebody talk here second?
Who seconds that?
You did. Hare. Yes. Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Dobb.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Chief?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Other chief?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Director of Public Works?
Yes, I have two things tonight, Your Honor. First, I'd like to ask for acceptance of bids for the new Morton Community Unit School District 709 Transportation Facility to be constructed at 250 West Cortlandt Street. The site bid package in the amount of $598,400 and award of contract for same to Illinois Civil Contractors Incorporated. And secondly, the building bid package in the amount of $209,800 and award of contract for same to First Build Associates. Two separate contracts. Please note that your vote would be subject to the school district's approval of the same thing tomorrow night at their August 6th meeting.
So moved, Your Honor.
Both of them? Second?
And also with the school board.
Yeah. It's second?
Second.
Belsley. Call it.
Herman?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Newhouse?
Yes.
Belsley?
Yes.
Dobbs?
Yes.
Hare?
Yes.
Second, I'd like to ask for acceptance of the bid for the 2013 CIPP Sanitary and Storm Sewer Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $43,830 and award of contract for same to Hare Construction Incorporated. And in addition, I'd like to ask for approval of project change orders in an amount not to exceed $25,000 for additional work to be constructed under this contract.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I believe the director could disclose maybe this was under budget.
Yeah, we budgeted, actually, this is less than we typically do. We budgeted $100,000. It came in rather low, good prices. In the process of that, we do have some storm sewers to be lined, and that's where the asking for additional $25,000 to go ahead and do that.
So you already know where the 25 is going to go?
Yes.
Okay.
Comes to about, I think, Jamie in the office, the stormwater technician, I think it's a little over $24,000 to do the rest of it at the unit prices that they submitted.
That was the letter from Phil Roker.
That was a letter from Phil, yeah.
Referencing that amount.
Yeah. And Phil, our wastewater superintendent, has been working in conjunction with the stormwater technician on this.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes,
Call
that is not my construction company. It's a different spelling, not same family. Just those watching, just to make sure.
And just a reminder, always those $25,000 and $50,000 savings we tried to put in the street department on the overlay programming savings. So.
Ready?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Newhouse?
Yes.
Belsley?
Yes.
Dobbs?
Yes.
Hare?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Planning and zoning officer.
One item tonight, Your Honor. Included in your agenda packet was just a portion of our enterprise zone map, and I highlighted 5 different areas on there where we would look to maybe expand our enterprise zone to encompass those areas. Several of those have projects that are in the works, so we could see some immediate results from that. It's kind of a lengthy process, but we wanted to kind of get the ball rolling, so I'll be working with the EDC folks on expanding that enterprise zone if you are in agreement.
We don't need a vote for this, do we?
No, I think, again, it's just to make sure this is the direction the board wants to go, because eventually you will have an ordinance. But as Roger said, it's quite a bureaucracy to go through.
Yeah, it's a net benefit to the village. It costs us essentially nothing and has a high potential return, so I certainly support it.
Randy?
I'm just curious. I know the state has parameters in place for how much we can expand. I mean, percentage of the community or per square miles?
It's square miles. I'm not certain what that number is, and I have to do the calculation on ours to make sure. I think we're still.
I was just going to ask, are we close to our maximum?
I don't think we were. Okay. It's been a number, 3 or 4 years ago, Steve, that we expanded just a small area in the Gold's Gym area, similar to where we're at right now. We were fortunate, and Kim with EDC seems to think we have a pretty good case for getting this done, because there's no guarantee that they will approve that, but with the work that we're looking maybe to do there, she thinks it should be a pretty good shot for us.
Good, thanks.
Everyone's in accord? Trustee Belsley?
Yes.
No. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Nothing tonight. Sorry. I thought you were taking a
that
vote on this, and I thought, well, Tom just said we didn't need
store
one.
that yes vote away until I need it.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Trustee Dobb?
Nothing tonight.
Trustee Hare, spelled with two E's.
Yes, 2 E's and an R. Nothing tonight.
Trustee Herman.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Trustee Kaufman.
Nothing tonight.
Trustee Newhouse.
Two brief items, Your Honor, from the Plan Commission. Number one, a quick report. The committee looking at the mixed-use zoning has met, and again, and we are looking at probably having that reported out. I am hopeful no later than September. So that is progressing, as I discussed a couple of meetings ago. The other item is ordinance 13-10. This is the annexation of the parcel of land on Harding Road. It was formerly out of the county and is being brought, or out of the village, now being brought into the village in conjunction with the new school bus site so that the school board can develop it and turn it over. Move to approve.
Second.
I want to note that something Trustee Belsley caught, and I thank him for that. In Section 6, it should be B3, Commercial District. The agreement has the proper zoning, this did not. So I would, if the
Yeah,
motion
B3.
maker and seconder would agree to that substitute.
B3, yes, it should be B3.
You accept that, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Newhouse.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Dobb.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
We have another closed session tonight. This involves a little bit of litigation. Counsel is going to take us in the back room and fill us in. We anticipate no action on this when we come out, so anybody who'd like to leave can feel free to do so. The only staffer we will need is Joe Kelly. Everybody else can go home.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Newhouse, second.
Belsley. Yes. Dobb.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Herman.
Yes.
Kaufman.
Yes.
Newhouse.